Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Member, you have 45 minutes.
Thank you. I don't know if I'm going to use it, but I'll do my very best, Madam Speaker, because there's a lot of ground to cover. Madam Speaker, we come to this Honorable House every year with essentially the same overall structural problem with the estimates. And when we raise this issue, members on the other side, they say, well, you said that last year. And you said the year before. As if to say, if you have a problem and you raise the matter and it's not addressed, that you should just forget about it. And the issue that I am raising here, Madam Speaker, has to do, and we'll come back to it again when we deal with the budget in January. The matter that we have here is basically the old trick of creating a large budget and not specifically indicating how it's going to be funded. And we raise this all the time because if you are honest in the presentation of various programs that the government intends to implement, various sources of revenue that they intend to tap into, then we need to be able to say exactly where it's coming from. Madam Speaker, my colleagues and I have prepared to respond in a fulsome way to the estimates and ultimately to the budget debate next week. It would be irresponsible of me as the leader on this side of the House, not given the importance of the debate that we have here in the subject matter, not to raise with you again, Madam Speaker, what seems to be the problem arising again about members on this side of the House being able to participate in the debate in the way that this debate warrants. The current arrangement, as you have reiterated in the protocols, seeming completely oblivious to the concerns that were raised, not just by honorable members here, but by members of the public with respect to the protocols guiding members' contribution in this House. They simply do not permit members who are unvaccinated to participate or who have not declared their status effectively in this honorable House. And for the life of me, I can't understand why that would be acceptable as normal business in this honorable House. When we know that there are things that we can do, and people have been doing it all over the world as we move from the crisis of COVID to living with COVID, for us to be able to continue to operate following the protocols, and we're safe. So one of the things that I had requested of you, Madam Speaker, and I'm saying this now for the record, because I had raised in this House when we had the last sitting, that a barrier be provided for each member where he or she speaks. That is done elsewhere, and that seems to me to be the most practical and safe way of conducting the business of this Honorable House.
Honorable Member, if I might. You would have written to me by way of letter
I was getting there, Madam Speaker.
dated Thursday the 9th of December, which would have been last Thursday. The letter was received on the 10th of December, which would have been last Friday. The letter was responded to as you raised, just as you are raising now, by way of private letter, Leader of the Opposition, to the Speaker, the matters about which you now bring to the fore. I am not sure if you are in receipt of the letter just yet, but certainly the letter has been dispatched post haste, I must say, to the office of the Leader of the Opposition, where a response is contained therein.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have received the letter this morning.
Very well.
And it is a matter that ought to be on the record in this Honorable House, that I wrote, that you have addressed the matter by saying that the plexiglass shield or whatever barrier that we have requested was not possible because of a weight constraint. Madam Speaker, honourable members raised this morning, I believe it was a member for Central Kingston, the possibility of providing a mobile barrier so that members can speak from their seat, because it's simply not practical
Honourable Leader of the Opposition,
to
if I might
arise
again.
and go to the booth,
Honourable
not
Member.
just to make your principal presentation, but anytime you have an interjection to make. It's just not practical.
Honourable Member, if I might, one last time. The rules also give certain guidelines as they pertain to when a ruling is made in this Honourable House, and that ruling is not revisited just like that. The measures that we have implemented are not for want of trying to bring things new, but they are made pursuant to a particular deadly pandemic that we are fighting, and I trust together. When this suggestion was made this morning by the Honourable Member for Central Kingston, I have already also addressed the suggestion as made. It is not for want of considering how best we can work this situation out, but there are certain practical limitations that prevent us from doing any better than we have done. This is as best as we can. This is as best that we can, honourable members, and I'm going to encourage the Honourable Leader of the Opposition to continue with the debate on the estimates.
Well, let me just say, Madam Speaker, that cannot be the final word on it, so it may be yours, but I beg that this matter should be revisited as circumstances change with the Chief Medical Officer.
Absolutely. And
that is something that
to the credit of the Chief Medical Officer, we have been seeing periodically the revisiting of protocols. But in the interim, the circumstances
May I suggest, Madam Speaker?
Just a minute. The circumstances as they obtain now remain practically the same as when the protocols were developed.
No, we'll let the CMO decide that. The point is, Madam Speaker, it is a matter that I believe that the members on this side of the House also, that we should have a meeting with the Chief Medical Officer, because there are particularities about the exercise of our functions in this House that may be brought to our attention that perhaps have not.
I'm quite sure she'll be happy to facilitate that. But in the interim, for today's proceedings, I encourage you to continue with the debate on the estimates.
So will you reach out to the Chief Medical Officer, or do I have to do that?
No, you feel free. Please, you have my full permission. So
the Speaker is not going to assist in resolving this matter?
Are you requesting that the Speaker assist?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
I certainly will have the Office of the House of Assembly make the necessary arrangements accordingly. And if you can now proceed with your debate. Thank you, Honourable Member. Please proceed.
Thank you. So, Madam Speaker, we have here, and I reiterate it, for the members, for those persons who follow this debate in the public, to understand that what we have here as an overall budget, as the Minister has pointed out, of $1.3 billion. That's $1,329,340,860. That is what we have on paper as the amount of money that will be spent and the amount of money that will be received in order to meet that. The budget has to balance. No self-respecting Minister of Finance could come to this Honourable House and say we're going to spend $10, but we only have $5. So, has to balance. And what they do, Madam Speaker, is essentially to inflate the category of other receipts, as the Minister himself said, and with a straight face just now, when he was talking about the capital budget. I believe he said it was $651 million, and he outlined a lot of sources as to where that money was coming from. But the largest category...
Capital budget is not $651 million, sir.
What was the 651, the overall budget? The point of the matter is, Madam Speaker, what the Minister said, and this is the point that I want to make, is that he said that of all the sources of funding that he has, on the capital receipts, the other receipts was $265 million. That's the largest category, essentially. And so you have a situation where you have this large chunk of the budget. You have already accounted for borrowings. You have already accounted for loans, for all the known sources of income to meet the expenditure that is put in the estimates. And you just easily say, well, we have 269 in other receipts. What? Disaggregate that for me. What does other receipts entail? If it's not loans, you ain't selling no capital assets, that's already accounted for. What makes up this $265 million? I know it's Christmas season to give those kinds of presents, Madam Speaker. So we understand that the government has to meet its bills. You have current revenue of $677.5 million. But current expenditure that exceeds that of $627 million. So as the Minister said, you have a deficit on the current account of $49.5 million or thereabouts. And we haven't taken into account the debt yet, because we still have to pay the debt. And this is the point Mr. Yusuf has made over the years, we have made here repeatedly. Back in the time when Other receipts were something like $35 or $40 million. Now it's $265 million, one of the largest categories of funding in the budget. And every time we raise it, it's dismissed as though it's some sort of it's a minor matter. It has no, you don't have to explain this. We don't have to account for it. We don't have to tell anybody how we're going to get that money, or if we don't get it, what is the consequence? Who is going to suffer in this budget? I mean, do we have two realities here? One that's on paper that everybody can see, and the other that operates in the Ministry of Finance, where you're chopping and changing to meet the realities of the actual expenditure that can be made. Because it's either you raise the money or somebody is going to have to go without. And I want for the minister to explain the raising of the money. I hope he can raise the money. This economy can do with a boost. People are feeling pain. They need hope. They don't need mirages. They need honesty so that they know what they're facing going forward. Madam Speaker, the question is, put another way, how is the budget being financed? All of the outlines, the line items that are covered there for expenditure, those have to be met if the minister is serious about what he puts on paper. We have already a very tight, well, in the budget itself, in the estimates, all the borrowings are already explained and accounted for. They're specified there. So it's not expected that that category or the receipts can be made up by any other loans because those are already specified here. In any event, we know that the borrowing, the room for borrowing, the space that this government has is extremely limited because we already have a situation where 42 cents from every dollar of current revenue goes to pay debt, for debt servicing. That's 58 cents left to do everything else. And the debt has to be paid. Because if you don't, the consequences are even more grave. It becomes more expensive to borrow. You get a bad name. Maybe even some disbursements may be affected. So we know that the debt has to be paid. And we have a situation where 42 cents out of every dollar raised in current revenue goes to it. We also have a situation where the debt to GDP ratio has climbed from 85% last year, it used to be down in the 70s, to 98.1%. of GDP. So the debt is pretty much the size of our economy. So it's no wonder, Madam Speaker, that we see in the media the concerns raised by the IMF regarding the risk of overall debt distress in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Madam Speaker, if the honourable member would give way.
Yes.
I would appreciate, just for my own elucidation, if he could point me to the IMF document in the media that raised the concern about debt distress in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Honorable.
Madam Speaker, I'm not the Minister's research officer. I didn't cite a document. I cited an agent. I cited an agency. I cited an agency, which, well, you know very well what it says. But Madam Speaker, the point is, the situation that we have here is one that is untenable. What it says is that the government, I mean, if you have 42 cents in every dollar paying debt, you have a debt to GDP ratio of 98%. You don't even need a document from anybody to tell you that. You're in serious problem. That is evident by itself. So, Madam Speaker, what this tells me is that there's very little room for the government to be borrowing anymore. And so, where are the funds going to come from? Where is the plan? We need a plan for productive investments to support local businesses, farmers, to get the economy going again and creating jobs and then tax revenue for the government. So if you don't have it, as it's set out here, at least it's not specified, and the borrowing situation looks very much foreclosed, where's it going to come from? Taxes? The people of this country can't afford any more taxes. They have been long suffering over the past year and a half, 2 years. And some just simply have been suffering. They can't afford any new taxes. So what it suggests to me, Madam Speaker, is that the budget or the estimates, as the numbers have indicated, and we will study them more closely with time. But what is evident is that the estimates as presented as the, if you like, the architecture of the government's economic thrust for the next year doesn't point to anything that is positive, transformative, or suggesting that there is going to be some serious movement or effort to move the economy forward. Everybody else, you go around the world, even in the biggest economy in the world, the United States, they're looking at COVID and they're saying, boy, as bad as this is, let's consider this like a reset button. And we start thinking of ways in which we could do things different and better. It requires investment. It requires gray matter, thinking about it as to what is feasible. And then pointing in a direction that everybody can see it and either buy into or can offer critical suggestions as to ways in which it can improve. But it's just, it seems to me, Madam Speaker, in this particular document, the same sort of puffery and inflation of the estimate to make it look good. I don't understand. I ask myself, what is the point? What is the point? If you're not going to be able to fund it and you can't say so, let's be honest and say, okay, this is what we have, this is how we're going to make the best of it, and this is how we're going to go forward. And then let us put our shoulders to the wheel and get the job done. The minister can convince me that he can do it. Well, more power to him. But the evidence here, what is seen here on the document, is that that is not the case. What we have going forward is more tinkering and incrementalism. Madam Speaker, you know, I believe the minister understands that this whole notion of inflating other receipts as a category, let me explain this to members listening in the public, is that other receipts, meaning other sorts of money that the government intend to collect, is a category of funding that the minister says he's going to get over the course of this year in order to finance his budget. And this is after he has taken into account all the money raised in the taxes, all the loans and grants that he's getting from friendly governments and other and multilateral agencies. So there is a pot somewhere that he can reach into and get $285 million, or is it 265? But he knows, Madam Speaker, there's a sense that this is getting out of whack. It's one thing when it's 35 million or 55 million, but 265 million. And so you see on page Roman numerals 7, where there's a summary of the capital receipts, there's like a tacit admission that, you know, it's a tacit explicit. Other capital receipts is going in the wrong direction. 265 million this year, 258 million last year. It was less the year before and so forth, so it's going up. But only in the projections does it actually go down. So you see that for 2023, it's projected to be $247 million. For 2024, it's projected to be $212 million. Big decline. That doesn't happen in reality because every year it's been going up and up and up. I've been in this house long enough to notice. So that is essentially an admission that it ought to be coming down. They need to phase it out. Or they need to find, maybe they intend to find other money elsewhere to reduce that category. But we are not going to get any further ahead, Madam Speaker, until we acknowledge that this is a problem and the minister comes up front and explain to people what exactly he intends to do over the course of the next year with the budget. I will return to this and other aspects of the debt during my budget address. Just one other point that we have to, again, to put this 265 million in context. This money is actually intended to be raised from domestic receipts. So it's internally, it's the money coming from abroad. That's what is said in the estimates themselves. So you have to get it from internal sources. Makes it even more. Doubtful, skeptical, Bregg's credulity that those funds can be raised domestically. Madam Speaker, I want to address a couple of areas of particular interest to me. There are three areas that I want to address in the remaining time I have on the specific ministries. Last year I spoke about the Audit Office, an office that I have great respect for. Not to pick on them, but to re-emphasize the importance of the work that they do. It's a fundamental part of the accountability and transparency mechanism of our government, the way it operates. I note that even with all the challenges that the department has, that no additional staff has been allocated or budgeted for next year to help them to catch up. The most important, function, seems to me, that the Audit Office does, is to audit the government finances and to prepare a report of the public accounts of the government, which is supposed to be done every year. And we're not supposed to be 6 and 7 years behind. The target that was set for last year was that the office would get 2015 done, because the last one that we had was 2014. They were supposed to get 2015 done by June, I believe, and 2016 by September, and by the end of the year, 2017 and 2018. I don't know where they are with 2017 and 2018. I know that we have received the Director of Audit reports for 2015 and 2016. And these reports are very important because it's an opportunity for us and for the general public, and not just this report, but other reports, performance reports and so forth that the Director of Audit, that the Audit Office prepares, gives them an opportunity to see how the finances are being managed. For example, Madam Speaker, we raised the issue of the discrepancy on the overdraft account between what the bank says and what the Accountant General says is the state of the overdraft. And over the course of a 5-6 year period, the difference between the two amounted to over $95 million. Where do you think that information comes from? It comes from the work of the Director of Audit. And the Director of Audit has raised this question, this matter, over and over again. And it has not been addressed over the years. This is a serious problem. When the Director of Audit says, I can't explain, the Director of Audit says, the Accountant General hasn't given information that they could explain this discrepancy. And in the most recent report that we received, the 2016 report, the failure to reconcile that account between the bank and the Director of the Accountant General continues to the extent of $18 million plus difference between the two accounts. And who knows what it is for 2018 and 2017 and 2019 and 2020. This is why, Madam Speaker, I draw attention to the work of the Director of Audit and that office. In the first 10 years or so I was in this House, I don't think we spoke about that office at all. But we see how critically important it is, and I'm glad that the attention that we have brought to it now seems to have injected some urgency, at least in the work of the Director of Audit, to say that even if we don't make our target of producing the report for 2017 and 2018 this year, I have it as a goal that I wish to see accomplished. And some additional resources naturally would make that a lot easier if you could have more staff or hire more outside consultancy to help to get the work done. And it's critically important that we get it done. Madam Speaker, as I was reviewing, I saw the work of the estimates the strategic priorities of the Department of Audit. I note that one of the things that they have indicated that they wish to do in the coming year is to conduct an audit or audits of the disaster relief programs that were administered by government during the last year. And this is at page 27 of the estimate, in the middle of the page. It says one of the key program strategies activities for 2022 is to conduct 2 post-audits of disaster expenditure to determine whether public funds and resources mobilized in response to COVID-19 and the eruption of La Sofia volcano were used for the purpose intended, and that procedures employed conform to existing legislation, policies, and accounting practices. I look forward to that, Madam Speaker. You will recall that when this Honourable House considered the relief package for COVID and also for volcano relief, we on this side of the House would propose, we say, well, this is such a massive, especially with COVID, a massive and new sort of problem that we're encountering, that we need to have a broad-based approach. We have a special committee of the House that will help to look into the needs and the funding and how the funds are being distributed. He said that the mechanisms that are in place are already sufficient and that we should use them. Never mind that the reports of the Director of Audit are 6 years behind. So I welcome this initiative, and I hope that the resources will be provided and that the work will be completed in 2022 as the document promises here. It's not going to be good enough for us to get it 4 or 5 years down the road.
Honourable Member, you have 7 minutes remaining.
Thank you,
7
Madam Speaker.
minutes.
Madam Speaker, part of that program, of the COVID relief, and this is something that I trust will be a part of the work of the Director of Audit. Of course, I can't tell the Director of Audit what to do. The Director of Audit is an independent office. But as a member of this Honourable House, I can raise questions that if the Director chooses to, she can take notice of. And that is to say, I know that one of the principal programs for business stimulation, business growth, job creation, and so forth, that the government had implemented as part of the COVID relief was the PRIME initiative, the PRIME program. And so it's my hope that it's important for us to know how the program has managed, whether it has created the jobs, what needs to be done to make it effective, if it can be, or if it's not being so. And part of this audit, because PRIME is part of the COVID relief program, hopefully will give us an idea as to how effective this program has been and whether it should be augmented, it should be altered, or it shouldn't be pursued. That can only come when you have an independent assessment of it, maybe a performance audit, but certainly as part of the work that the audit department does when it reviews the use of public funds for disaster expenditure, because COVID expenditure is disaster expenditure and PRIME was part of that, that it would look at that program as well and give us a heads up as to how things are going. I look forward to that, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish also to address two other things. I'll do the House of Assembly more quickly because that one, I don't suppose too many members of the public are going to be interested, because it affects the work that we do in this House. At page 33 of the strategic priorities, it says that one of the strategic priorities of the House of Assembly is to ensure all members have the necessary tools to attend and participate fully at their maximum in all functions of the House. Madam Speaker, relevant given the discussion we had this morning regarding members' ability to function at their maximum in this honorable House. And I trust that in the application, the pursuit of this priority, that the discussion we had this morning, not to revisit it, but it's here as part of the estimate, that becomes part of the work of ensuring that all members have the necessary tools to attend and participate fully at their maximum in all functions of this honorable House. I see on the comment section it says the department continues to provide quality service to its members. Well, that's good to hear, but given the discussion we had this morning, there's more that needs to be done. A second aspect of that, Madam Speaker, to ensure that members have the tools, is the provision of updated laws of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The hard copies, Madam Speaker. When I entered this House, I got a set of the hard copies of the laws of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I believe most members at the time did. But I find myself, Madam Speaker, having to scramble all the time and send my research assistant looking for various updated pieces of legislation. The online stuff is not user-friendly. And I see members of this honorable House and various ministries, they come in with their bound copies under their arm because it's more useful. And for me as a leader of the opposition, I have to feel as if somehow I am not entitled to know what the laws that I pass in this honorable House, that they are available and accessible to me just as easily. There's no allocation in the estimates for that. If it is, I haven't seen any. And it's something that needs to be addressed because it does affect the way in which members of this House do their work. And finally, I note that there is also a promise, or at least an objective, to create an environment in which the Public Accounts Committee can function. Again, this is something that I'm not sure exactly what has been done or what will be done, but I urge that the work be done to make it so that that committee can do its work. Finally, Madam Speaker, I want to address a matter that is of critical importance to the economy of this country, and certainly one that is important to me, coming from a constituency where the activity is very important, that is fisheries. And I have questions really that I hope that the Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries will be able to address. At page 444, where again the key program activities, strategies and activities for the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries are lined out, and that section deals with fisheries. It says here at page 444, it's a matter of some interest. I think most people in the country don't really know much about it. It says there was a reduction in the high seas tuna longline fleet from 33 to 4 fishing vessels. And notice was given for the full termination by the end of first quarter 2022. Notice by whom? What is the impact, if any, of essentially what looks like the phasing out of this industry? You want to answer it now? Sure.
Thank you very much.
Honorable Minister of Agriculture.
Yes, page 444. And it speaks about the issue of the reduction of the high seas tuna longline fleet from 33 to 4 fishing vessels, and notice was given for the full termination by the end of the first quarter 2022. And of course, the explanation is this, and we couldn't contain the full explanation on the page. But for decades, we had Vincentian flagged vessels fishing on the high seas, not in Vincentian waters. And we are moving towards full global compliance in our fight and our quest to reduce illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. So this doesn't pertain directly to the fishing industry in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The reason why it says here, explore the opportunities for fleet expansion, we want to develop a local fleet owned by Vincentian flagged vessels that would go on to the high seas and bring back the fish to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And it's very important that I clear this up, because some persons are of the view that there are foreign-owned vessels, Vincentian flagged, fishing in our waters. That's not so. There are Vincentian flagged vessels fishing on the high seas, which is the common heritage of mankind, and landing the fish all over the world, different ports. So what the international community has said is that as a flagged state, we want you to be able to monitor where you are landing fish, or where fish is landed, that is carrying the Vincentian flag. And because of that, we had the red card, which the honorable member knows. So in order to advance the industry, we have to basically close that part of the registry which facilitates the flagging of vessels, fishing vessels or foreigners to fish on the high seas. So that's what, but of course, as I said, it will take 2 to 3 pages for me to explain that there.
Yeah, well, Madam Speaker, I know enough about it to know that it's something of that direction, but the way it was written is kind of vague. It just says that the fishing notice was given for the full termination, and didn't say by whom. And then also, on the left-hand column, explore opportunities of fleet expansion, which sounds very promising, but what does that mean? Getting some more of the different people to continue it, or, as the minister now has said, he's talking about getting local people involved. But if that is the case, then that should be one of the objectives that you have going forward. You haven't had that. There's no indication here that you really intend to pursue that. But anyway, that I know is, if coming somewhere down the road, compared to the next issue that I'm going to deal with, which is the local fisheries. So when I ask the question, Madam Speaker, of the Minister, what is the impact for us of essentially what looked like the phasing out of an entire section of an industry, if you look at it just based on what's written there? It was really getting to the point as to whether we are, actually benefiting from this component of our fishing industry. And from what the Minister has said, it seems not. But there is, Madam Speaker, another area that is much more beneficial to our local people. And I want to deal with one. At page 445, the Minister speaks of the survey of the fishing industry, a fishing industry survey, essentially for conch and lobster. And that was postponed. I'm just going to raise it because I know that I'm pushing for time. And the Minister could comment.
Yes, you have just about another minute or so.
Thank you. The Minister can deal with it when he stands up. He says that the survey wasn't done because of COVID and so forth. I want to know what the intention is, because this is something of critical importance, given the fact that there are new players, large players, in the market for the export of fishing. The second issue, at same page 445, the Minister talks about enhancing marketing and distribution of fish and fish products locally, regionally, internationally. But I note that he mentions here the fisheries centers. One I know is in Beckway, one is in Owea, Kingstown, Barley, various other places in southern Grenadines and so forth. But there is no mention of the large private entity, Rainforest Seafood, which has a facility out at Calico. And from what the Minister has said elsewhere, it sounds like this is going to be a major player in the export, the enhanced marketing and distribution of fish internationally. And so I wonder why there is no mention of it here, and what impact that private venture will have on the overall marketing. Because, I mean, if you go on the basis of what's here, you suggest that the fisheries centers is the key to the marketing of fisheries overseas, when in fact this major facility, I've heard the Minister speak about this elsewhere, seems to be one of the primary thrusts that he has for marketing fish overseas. And finally, by way of clarification, I would like the Minister to, at page it's 479. It may be a simple explanation, but it was a little confusing for me. It's 479 fish catch. If you look at the top of the page, quantity of fish landings, it says for 2021, 1.488. What is that value? wait, because lower down it says increase in fish landings in pounds, 1.9 million. So I'm not sure exactly. Quantity tends to suggest it could be volume or it could be money. You see, it's important because it looks at the trajectory of the industry. And it looks like sort of incremental increase, but still, it's significant. If you say from 2021 to 2024, you're going to increase the value of the catch by 600,000, whatever the unit is. It's quantity. So it's in pounds, because lower down it says, if you see down at the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4 from the bottom, increase in fish landings in pounds. And then there's a different number there. Anyway, you could get some clarification for me, because it's important. And Minister, I'll tell you why. Because, you know, I am very interested in this, what's happening with the blue economy, the fishing industry and so forth. I know people in my constituency who they make a living and they want to do better at it. I know people on the mainland here in Oya and then Southern Grenadines and so forth, they want to. And we have potential there. And so when you speak about it, then, you know, we have to have signals that this thing is going to be really something that's going to take off. You know? And I look in the recurrent expenditure. There's talk about, you know, expanding, strengthening the blue economy via technical and financial support to the fisheries sector, but there's none. The technical, well, but the financial support, there's no real change from the year before, whether it's in the recurrent expenditure or on the capital side. On the capital side, between pages 810 and 811, you see, you talk about providing money to buy boats and so forth, but you have a total of like $200,000 in 2021, $1 million allocated in 2021 in total, revised. And the entire project costs $1 million. That's not going to transform fishing. And certainly not if you're going to do it on the high seas.
Honourable Member.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Time is up.
What I want to see, Madam Speaker, is that there is a real thrust, a real initiative to say, listen, man, this is something we could make a decent living at, and put the resources where your mouth is, so to speak. I focus on fishermen, just one point. Last weekend, in my constituency, there was one small fishing boat, the ones that could go out and spend 2 or 3 days or a week and come back, anchored out in the harbor. And I said to them, you see, that what I want to see transform is in 5 years, instead of one, you have 20 of those vessels out there. And the fellas will tell you, yes, they want to do it, but so where are we going to get the money from? We could build a speedboat and buy a 75 horsepower engine. But what you're talking about here is beyond our means. And certainly it's beyond the means of what the minister has allocated here in the estimates as well. I will continue further with this, Madam Speaker. Thank you for indulgence.
Yes. Further debate? Further debate? Honourable Minister of Finance? Honourable, Minister of Transport?
Madam Speaker, I thought that we had a very important, very interesting morning session. And so that I'm sure that most of us are a bit home. So accordingly, I wish to ask for the suspension of this sitting at this time for the luncheon interval until 3 p.m. today. At 3 p.m.
Honourable members, the question is that the sitting of this Honourable House do stand suspended for the luncheon period until 3 p.m. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Sitting stands suspended.